Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some crossing and finishing. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be looking at a pattern of play which is focusing on working the ball in behind to then deliver. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. So in terms of players for this week, we're going to be working with 15 players in total, 1 goalkeeper, 14 outfield players. Now, if you have 2 goalkeepers, you can add 2 goalkeepers into this area here, and you can just look to rotate to start, and then in our other games we can look to adapt it. Okay, so we'll have a little chat about that as we go into the other drills. In terms of equipment, we're going to be focusing on using balls, bibs and cones, and then later on we're going to have small-sided goals. Okay, so if you don't have small-sided goals, you can try and replace them with poles. Okay, now in terms of the setup for this part of the session, from the goal line to where the defenders are here, you want about 20 yards of depth. Okay, and then you want these attackers to be between 5 and 10 yards further back. Okay, and then it'll be a further 5 yards to this deepest player here. Okay, so you're looking about 35 to 40 yards of total depth, and then the width. Okay, so we just want to have around 10 yards between this area here. Okay, so you're looking from the wide player here into here to 6-7 yards, and then just a couple of yards extra for this midfielder. So what you're looking at is 10 and 20 for that for the area for the passing area, and obviously you've got your spacing behind, you've got the space for the players to start here, and then what you want then is a distance between the midfielders here and the strikers each side. So again, it could be another 10 yards. So you're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40. You could have your 20 yards there and then just 30 yards in between there. Okay, so you go 50 in total. Obviously, depending on what age group you're working with. So if you're working with younger players, okay, they can't cross the ball from as far out, okay? So you look to just shrink that distance in a little bit, okay? You can even do more. It was like a cut back type cross. But for obviously all the players, try and make it as wide as you can, okay, to keep it as realistic to the pitch dimensions that they'll be using in a game. So we're going to have 2 defenders, 4 strikers, and then the wide players, okay? 1 defender only goes in at a time, okay? 2 strikers go in at a time and they look to rotate. And then these players out here look to rotate all the time, okay? So how it'll work is, we're going to start with the crosser having the ball. They're going to look to open out as if they're playing inside, okay? Play into the player inside here, okay? Who then looks to set it back to the midfielder, okay? And we're looking to them to create space, so move out, okay? So then this player's timing the running behind. It gets played in, okay? So it can either be in towards the feet and around the feet for a touch and deliver, or test the player, make them sprint towards the ball, okay? So then what we're looking for then is the movement between these 2 players. Now, with the defenders, we're going to go for the defender defending at the front post, okay, to go in and defend. So this defender will defend off the left-hand side, this defender will defend off the right-hand side. Now we're focusing on our players' movements in here. What we could see is this player try and draw the defender to take a step back, and then the player who's on the far side can look to attack that front post. The ball can be driven in and then finished. So what we're trying to think of is here is the players who are attacking, okay, communicating with each other, okay, and always being focusing on each other's movements and not just running into one area, okay, so making sure that they're timing it. So before this player's received the ball, we don't want the players already in the box, okay? They're going to be standing and waiting, they've already gone too early. What they want to see is as that pass gets made, okay, they start to make a move, and as they see this player is going to receive it, that's when they can look to maybe change position. So this player could attack the front post, this player could spin around the back, and then the crosser, we want the crosser to adapt as well. So is it going to be a low-driven cross along the floor? Are we going to put height on it? Okay. Are we just going to look to loft it as well? It could be a driven cross, it could be whipped in, okay? So think about the area which we're trying to target. So in between the goalkeeper and that penalty spot, can we get it in there? So just outside that 6-yard box for the players to go in and attack. Now, the player who set it back, okay, will then go to the player who plays through. The player who plays through goes to be the crosser, and the crosser goes to be the player who's set back as like the inside winger or forward. two strikers just swap over. Then we go from the opposite side. So we're focusing on taking that touch inside, playing into here, okay? We're playing wide, then we're playing back, time that run in there. So this player's onto the ball. They're gonna take a touch, okay? So as they take that touch, okay, this player might attack in here, force the defender to drop in with them, and then this player makes that late run, can get played into that front post area, and then we can look to finish. So vary the crosses, okay? Low driven crosses, lofted in. It could be more of like a pass as well. It could be lofted in. It could be a cutback. So it's important that the wide player gets the head up and the two attackers, okay, look to communicate with each other and look to vary their movements into the front post, into the back post, and maybe one of them holds off until we can see that the wide player is going to deliver. And these players as well can always swap over with the strikers as well if you wanted to. If, let's say you've got some wingers working in this area, you want them to focus on getting in the box, just swap them over with different players at different times. We want to move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now moving into a possession-based drill, which is going to be focusing on transitioning to then go and attack from wide areas. So in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, so this area here, okay, we're looking about 25 yards. So we're giving the crosses a chance to deliver, and we're giving these players a chance to attack space. And then this area here is going to be 20 yards. Now in terms of the width, you can bring in this area, okay, you can shorten this one. So this area here, you want at least 30 yards, but that's quite big for a 4v4. So you could bring that into 20, okay? So it could be 20 yards width in here, 30 yards there, players either side. Or you can keep it 30, but the wide the players, so the floaters stay, so you can take off 5 yards either side and they can stay in this area here. Now the Blues are going to be the team in possession. You can look to swap it over after a certain amount of time if you wanted to. Now, the Reds are trying to win the ball back. The Blues' aim is to complete a set amount of passes before then scoring in this goal. So if you had two keepers, set amount of passes and then go and score, okay? Or if you had two keepers, it can be a set amount of passes and then go and score off a cross, and you can look to have maybe a 3v3 in this area instead, extra defenders in there, and then look to obviously players, once they played in, go and attack the box as well. But what we're doing in here is, so you can start off maybe with 5 passes. So they're trying to get 5 passes, okay, players trying to close down, they get the 5 and then they look to score. They can receive the next ball. That's how they score a goal. If you wanted to, you could do 7 or 10. They can use the floaters to keep possession to make a 6v4. Now the Reds look to win the ball back. As soon as the Reds win the ball back, they're looking to play in either side, okay? Once they've played in either side, they can have one player attack the box along with these two players. So it can be a 3v2, okay? So once this player attacks the box, it doesn't have to be that they score from across. It can be that they receive from wide areas, striker receives it to feet, plays in the third man runner, and then we score. So basically, they've just got to receive the ball from those wide areas. So we're focusing on attacking in wide areas. If the Blue defenders win it back or the keeper gets hold of the ball, they look to throw it in and then they look to score as quick as they can. So on transition, the Blues look to score as quick as they can. There's no set passes, okay? They're looking to score as quick as they can and then they'll get the next ball. So for the Reds, looking to keep the ball, okay, for as long as they can, okay? To win the ball back after the Blues have tried to keep it for as long as they can. Then can they play wide? Okay, then we're thinking of where can our runners come from? We could get a player pulling out to the back post, player looking to attack the front, and we have another player attacking the back post. It could get whipped in for a player to go and attack, but again, we want to put it into dangerous areas. So between that keeper and that penalty spot, can we drop the ball in that area? If not, if that's not on, can we look to play feet, okay? Or if we've got that space to drive the ball in for a cutback or drive the ball in behind the defence on the floor, perfect. So again, we want the crosses having confidence, composure, okay? focusing on the accuracy of them. If they have one bad cross, okay, don't be scared of doing another one. Okay, can we get some positive reinforcement and support for the players, obviously looking to deliver, and also the strikers as well. Now, a way you can adapt it is that once the Reds score, they could swap over with the Blues, or you could have these players set, the floaters set, and then these players being different teams. So let's say you could have a non-bib team and team in yellow, wherever it is, and it could be that the team chasing the ball back, they look to play into the crosses, okay? One player attacks, and if they score from the cross, they then become the team in possession, so they can get some rest and they can look to keep that ball in there. So that's another little adaptation that you can do for the players to transition and swap over different roles in the game. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now moving into a small-sided game-based scenario, okay, which is focusing on working the ball in wide areas, but on transition as well. So what the focus is going to be, okay, is that the Reds are going to be looking to attack using the wide players. Now, they don't have to score using the wide players, but it's where they're getting their overload, okay? The Blues also get to use the floaters in possession, and they've got to move the ball into the middle third to then score into one of these goals. In terms of the setup, okay, so we're going to have 30 yards of width essentially, and then either side between 5 and 10 yards, okay. Now, in terms of the depth, we're going to go from the goal line here to around 25 yards out, and then a further 15 yards, so 40 yards of depth. You can increase that as well if you wanted to. Start pointers with the coach, okay. So if the Reds score, they get the ball again, okay. If the Reds have a shot on goal and it misses or the keeper saves it, okay, the Reds will get the ball again. If the Blues score, okay, the Reds get the ball again, okay. So the Blues' focus is going to be a lot more on defence, so you can work on their defensive principles, staying compact. When they score, they get a point, they get a goal, but then the Reds are getting the ball. Now, if the ball goes out either side, so we'll do throw-ins, but if it goes behind the goal, no corners. If the ball comes out this way, then obviously there's no throw-ins or nothing here. The ball will then start with the coach again. Now, the players aren't locked into these zones, okay, but what we want for the Reds is having options in possession. So we don't want all 6 players in here cramping it up. Can we get players being able to recycle it, okay? Players stretching the pitch. Can we focus on targeting these spaces in between the fullbacks? Now, we're using these wide players, okay? So it could be that player in number 10 receives the ball. They play out to the wide player. Now, these players are unopposed, okay, but the Blues can press them as close to the line as they want. As this player receives it and gets closed down, can we then slide that ball in behind? We go in to finish. So we're using those wide players to attack, creating the overloads. Now, what we've also got with that option is that a player might drop off, fullback doesn't know what to do, half and half, and then we create that space to deliver into the box. So we're focusing on our players' movements, okay, it's intricate, okay, that speed and elusiveness to beat the defenders, okay, players rotating, so we could have a player coming short here, and then we see the number 10 receive the ball. What do the defenders want to do, okay, try and close down, or do they try and drop off, leaving us space to then go and attack? And then we've also got that option, so we're creating those areas with the players in the wide areas. We're creating that overload, creating a bit of confusion. So when a player receives the ball out here, okay, might have an option short, it takes a defender away. This player might be able to get the ball out the feet. Then we get players attacking the ball in the box to score. Another element to the game which we're focusing on here is our counter press. Okay, so let's say the Reds have the ball, gets played in, they look to slide it in behind. Okay. Ball gets fizzed across the box, defender wins it. Where are we in relation to the ball? We get high, okay? We prevent passes out, okay? So we're closing the ball down. So then if they look to play forward, we can intercept it, and then we can go and look to score quickly. So trying to prevent them working it into that middle area. When they do, the reason the goals are here is so that when the Blues receive it, they're playing out of pressure, okay? So they're playing out of pressure into wide areas. So for us, can we keep them central, okay, where we've got bodies around the ball. So when a player receives it here, where they're going to go? They can't turn and go forwards. We're showing them away from goal. When they try and get across, look to press it. Stay narrow, compact, okay, keep the angles and distances, and then we can go and attack. If there's no option, centrally, can we play wide, get it out our feet, and look to deliver? So again, putting it into those dangerous areas in between the keeper, okay, and that penalty spot. So we're looking around about that 6-yard box to the penalty spot. So it's a close distance, but can we put it in that danger area? Or slide the ball in behind for someone to finish. So when we're working into wide areas, it's not just about delivering all the time. Cutbacks, passes into space to then set the team up to score. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.